All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson by giving all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us all this truth and who also rule and teach well. And Shalom to all the Achim in this truth and sincerity, starting with the 144,000 and the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, which we are fighting to be a part of. And this is your brother Chabar Yakal coming back, Lord willing, with another quick and edifying lesson. And the title, as you can see, is Esau is at the height of his blessing. And as a matter of fact, I should have put this in my notes, but I'll start with this one. Esau Edom is known in the Bible as the wicked. All right, and they're known today as the so-called white race, the self-proclaimed white race, the Edomites. Okay, and not all of them, all right, not all so-called white people are Edomites, but for the most part, the Edomite of today would look like a so-called white person for the most part. It's not always the case, but in a general sense, it is the case, But there's exceptions to every rule. You got our people scattered among all the other nations and looking like all the other nations, and then even Edomites. You got Edomites that look like Israelites. You got terrorists. Okay. You got Edomites. So-called white people you got Edomites that look like Jakes. You got vice versa, and then you got other nations in the mix too. There's white people that are really Moabites. There's Moabites that are really, Edomites. But I'm gonna go into the blessing of Esau, and I'm also gonna go into how fast forwarding to the times that we're in now, the last days, which we are in the last days. We're at that time right before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Hold on, let me see if I could. Hold up. 27. Genesis chapter 27 and verse. I'll start at 38. Genesis 27 and 38. And Esau said unto his father, which the father of Esau was Isaac. He was also the father of Jacob, which became Israel. And he became a nation of people. The 12 tribes of Israel. When you read about when Jacob and Esau were in the womb, it was said unto Rebekah, 2 nations are in thy womb. Dropping some, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposition, or context. That's the word. Genesis 27 and 38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Because Jacob had supplanted. The word Jacob goes back to the Hebrew word Yaqua, which means he supplants. So Jacob supplanted, with the help of his mother Rebekah, he supplanted Esau, and he supplanted Jacob because, again, just giving some context, he put on some goat skin that was like very hairy to trick, Jacob. Isaac, Salaki, to trick his father Isaac. Jacob put on some goat skin with hair, to make him seem like he was Esau, because really Isaac wasn't buying it. He was like, wait a minute, that's Jacob's voice. He wasn't being fooled, but he put on that like I said, that goat skin, and he tricked him into giving him the blessing, So Ultimately, Jacob got the birthright and he got the blessing. And that's why Esau lifted up his voice and wept. All right. Hey, 144, Lord willing, will that number. Call Allah Yahweh Shem Shai. But reading on. And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. All right. In the NLT it says, finally his father Isaac said to him, You will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of heaven above. Yeah, they went off. I'm not gonna lie, the NLT went slap off on that scripture. Basically, it's saying Esau is gonna have the best parts of the earth. That's what that's saying. His dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. You know, fatness goes into riches. You know, it's synonymous with living, dainty, living a dainty life, living large, so to speak. Living fat. People even say that, living fat. Certain people, I don't know if people still say it, but regarding money, they'll say, fat, I got fat stacks. I don't even know if people say that anymore, but the point is fatness represents riches, wealthy. Yeah, and Esau, look at where they're at now. Look at the international banking families. They own everything. They own, they got central banks in damn near every country. They own America, and America got military bases in damn near every country. They own everything. They truly, the blessing that Isaac gave Esau, they're living there. They're at the height of their blessing. They got underground cities, which as high as tensions are on the earth right now, the elites are probably in those bunkers right now. They're in the height of their blessing. They got the Space Force. They got satellites. Okay, they got AI. They got AI robots. They got drones, completely autonomous. Or remote control. But the point that I'm saying is, this devil is at the height of his blessing. All right, and it's gonna take divine intervention to stop him. There's nothing that we can do in the flesh. There's no, we all gotta rise up and come together. No, there's no beating him in the flesh. We gotta beat him in the spirit. That's where he can't win, because he's a carnal man. That's why it's called the beast. It's beastly, the mark, the MOTB. It's not spiritual. It's a physical mark, because this man is physical. This man is carnal, all right? But verse 40, and here's the main point. And by thy sword shalt thou live. All right? By his sword he shall live. Esau is the whooping stick of the Most High. And that's why, the Edomites, the so-called white race, that's why they came down so hard on you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, because you are the Israelites. Amos, the first chapter, tells you the Lord say he will punish, the Israelites, for our iniquity. And he did that. And what did he do? What did he use? He used Esau, Edom. Matter of fact, I believe I got this scripture. Yep, Psalm 17. Let me get that. I'm gonna finish this verse out too. It says, "And by thy sword shalt thou live, and thou shalt serve thy brother," which who was his brother? Jacob. It shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Because there was a point in time where so-called blacks, which are really the Israelites, ruled Europe, for 1,000 years, going back to the Byzantine Empire, going back to the so-called Dark Ages. And in that time, the so-called white man, they weren't in power, around the 1300s, 1400s, they weren't really in power. They were, uncivilized, but like in the 1500s, that's when they started coming back, during the Renaissance. You could correct me if I'm wrong on the dates. But yeah, that's what that's going into. Because one time, we had Esau under us. Going back to the time of David, he took down the Edomites. He set up garrisons, in Mount Seir, you know, and Solomon had them, in subjection too. But now this devil, he's off the leash, he's off the chain. It says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. That's that old Cain spirit. Because who's Esau, back in the past? He was Cain. And what did Cain do? He slew his brother Abel. So Esau had that same spirit. And guess what? He still has that same hatred. All right, to this day. Why do you think, there's still Jake's being lynched? There's still Jake's ending up missing. That's that same hatred that Esau has. All right. Why do you think back in slavery, here in America, why do you think it was so harsh and inhumane? Because that's that same hatred. He said, then will I slay my brother Jacob. All right. Remember, he said 2 nations are in thy womb. So even though it was Esau saying that, there's a whole nation of people with that same energy. A whole nation of people, which came from Esau. All right. And they're that antagonist. And he's at the height of his blessing now. So I'm going to get this one. Psalm 17 and 13. It says, arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. All right. So that's the spirit that the elect is in. We're asking the Lord to take this devil down, to destroy Babylon the Great, which is America. Destroy the Edomite power structure. Destroy NATO and the EU, where we want the Lord to do that. And he's going to when he returns. When he returns with the army of angels and what the world ignorantly calls UFOs, which are really the chariots, the vehicles of the angels. When he comes back, he's going to take down NATO and the EU. He's going to take down America with the help of the missiles, the nuclear missiles. All right. So that's us asking him to arise and disappoint him and cast him down. Don't let him fulfill his NWO. Don't let him put a chip in everyone. Don't let him, make us slaves forever. Take this devil down. This devil wants to take away all our rights. He wants to take away everything we own and put a tracking device in us. Nah, cast him down and disappoint him. All right, I'm going to read that again. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. What was Esau's blessing? He was blessed with the sword. This is another scripture that shows you that the Edomites are the wicked. There's a whole nation of people on the earth that are the wicked. They just can't do right. Anything. Look at the state of the earth. Because of the people who are ruling, they do rituals. They drink blood. They do, all type of witchcraft. Look at Washington D.C. Look at the architecture of Washington D.C. Nothing but pentagrams. You got pyramids. You got obelisks. All type of sorcery. Because they're the wicked. But they're the sword of the Lord. The Lord, which his name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahweh Shai. The Lord uses them as a whipping stick. They're the sword of the Lord. All right. And let me get another one, because it said, deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword. So let's bring it all together. Let me add hold up. Let me add this piece to the puzzle and bring it all together. This is Malachi chapter 1 and 4. Whereas Edom saith, Edom, the Edomites, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. That goes back to what I just read in Genesis 27, where it says when he shall break his yoke from off his neck. When they were impoverished, they were underneath us, But now, what did he say? We will return and build the desolate places. All right. Thus saith the Lord. And one of those desolate places was the Roman Empire. Look at America. America is the Roman Empire reincarnated. All right. It's the second leg of the Roman Empire. They returned and built the desolate places. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. So they built America, but the Lord's getting ready to throw it down. All right. He's getting ready to send his son back. And yes, they're two different people. They're not the same people. The Father is sending back the Son. Oh, but they're the same. Oh, wacky-tacky Christians, they can't get past that because they're not of the elect. And it's really not funny, but hey, you got to find humor. You can't. We're not robots. We're not Terminators. You got to have fun with this thing. You could laugh. It's okay. You're not wicked. But it says, they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So the Edomites, they're the wicked. It says the border of wickedness. Wherever they set up their borders is nothing but wickedness, perverseness, going against the scriptures. All right? They're the real savages of the earth. Okay? And it says the people against whom the Lord had indignation forever. That means the Lord is angry with them forever. To the point when you read Obadiah, it says, it's going to come a time in the kingdom, all the Edomites are going to get rounded up and burnt up. All right. That's in Obadiah. It's in other places in the scriptures as well. But it's going to come a time where all Edomites are going to be done away with because the Lord does not like them. He hates the Edomites. It says it right there. All right. So what do you think he's gonna do when he comes back? All right. I wasn't even thinking about going into that, but Lord willing, maybe I'll get a precept on that. The Lord is gonna fight against the Edomites when he returns. It says that Isaiah 63. Matter of fact, hold on, let me get that real quick. It shows you the Lord is against the Edomites. Yep. Isaiah 63 and 1. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? All right, Bozrah was a capital city of Edom. All right. In the modern day, Bozrah is America. You got to be spiritual. This book isn't for, carnal people. This is a spiritual book. But only the secrets are only revealed to his servants, the prophets. It says, is that this that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength? I that is speaking righteousness, mighty to save. That's Yahushua. So he's gonna, come against Edom. When you read on, it tells you that he's gonna, destroy them, trample them. All right. Hold up. Okay. 2 Thessalonians 2:9, it says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan. Who is that talking about? What did we just go into? Who the wicked is. If you're a wicked person, you're coming after the working of Satan. The word Satan means adversary. You're adverse to the laws of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, the regulations. You're adverse to nature. And that's Esau. He's adverse to life itself. You can't even, drink clean water anymore. The rainwater is polluted. He's Satan, man. The word, like I just said, the word Satan means adversary. And, it goes back to the Hebrew word shaitan. This devil is coming after the working of Satan. It says, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Okay, and a big part of that is AI. All right. That's a huge part of, his lying wonders, which he's going to use to deceive people. He's already doing it. All right. I already mentioned, he has, I already mentioned the MOTB, the RFID micro C-hip. Okay. That brother at the Mayim, he just did a lesson going into Kill Gates, in that digital tattoo, which is going to be on the hand. All right, that's leading to the chip. And that's this scripture, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Oh, you could pay with it. You could access the internet without even looking at a screen. Okay? That's the lying wonders, man. So continuing on, it says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth that they might be saved. All right? And anytime I read that, I say good, for the wicked people, who can't get the truth, good. That should be the mindset. The scripture says, pray not for this people. If they can't get it, good. Hey, my chances are better. All right, I'm working out my own salvation. The scripture says, be not curious how the unrighteous shall perish, but rather inquire how the righteous. Oh, Salakia. Be not curious how the ungodly shall perish, but rather inquire how the righteous shall be saved. So the mindset is, hey, I'm worried about the righteous making it. I'm worried about me making it. If they can't get it, hey, good. Straight up. Get Job 20 and 22. It says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. This talking about Esau, Edom. They're in the fullness of their sufficiency, and they're in straits right now. The witchcraft isn't working like it used to. People are waking up. The moment they do a false flag, everyone is on it, exposing it. He's in straits. Like this devil he's in a position of difficulty right now. The elites, their rituals ain't working no more. All that witchcraft, is failing them. That's why it says in Isaiah 47, stand now with thine enchantments, If so be, they may be able to save you, roughly paraphrasing. Okay? This devil, he knows he's going down. And that's why do you think these elites got these bunkers? They know it's all going to come crashing down on them. And they know Yahweh Shai is coming back too. Why do you think they got the Space Force? In the fullness of his sufficiency, he's at the height of his blessing. Okay? He shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon them. Now, when you look up that word wicked, it really just goes into laborer. That's all these other nations. That's even, Jake too. That's the slaves, That's why I said the moment they do something, people are on TikTok exposing it. That's what it means by every hand of the wicked shall come upon them. When he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. The moment this devil thinks he's about to do his New World Order, his NWO, it's all going to come crashing down on him. Right when he thinks he's about to eat, put a chip in everyone. The Lord's going to destroy all his plans and come back and destroy his kingdom, save the righteous, and they're going into slavery, the elites. It says, he shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. That's talking about the nuclear missiles. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him. That's going into that nuclear destruction, Let me see. I'm going to end off with this. Isaiah 59:19. And when they come, with that sword, hey, this is what's going to happen for the righteous, for us, Lord willing. It says, so shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west. What's his name? Yahweh. What's his son's name? Yahweh Shai. And his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. And when you look up the Hebrew word for that word standard, let me get it. It's nawas. And it says to flee, escape. All right. It says to take flight, depart, disappear. The Lord's going to give us spiritual power. He's going to give us the power to be able to teleport away. He's going to give us the power to go invisible. Yeah, he's going to give us spiritual power, man. Hey, Yahweh Shai said, they that believe on me, the works that I do shall they do greater, you know? So look at the miracles he did. He walked on water. He disappeared. You know, he was able to transfigure himself. We're going to be able to do even greater works. He said that. That's what he said. And I believe it. All right. So the Lord's going to give us that power, man. It says to fly to the attack. So it's going to be a defense and an offense aspect to it. To put to flight, drive hastily, to cause to disappear, hide. So, you know, it might be troops coming after you. It might be drones. And you just turn invisible. You know, the thermal vision can't pick you up. So the Lord's going to be with us, man. So, you know, hey, we just got to continue to fear the Lord, man. Continue to serve him. All right. And he's going to be with us in the times we're coming into. So, Lord, this was edifying once again, giving our praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahshua,